Welcome, everyone, to episode 396 of Just Joshing. I am your host, Joshua Pantellaresco. I write stuff in podcast 2 today, part 1 of my 2-part conversation with Liana Kerzner. Liana, so I stole Sparkle Muffin from Liana Kerzner. I actually tell her about that in this episode because she creates such a wonderful, memorable character. It fit my day job perfectly to a T at the time, and I really enjoyed it. It was. I'm always amazed. Liana might be the smartest person I know. Maybe she's up there for sure. Very astute, very sharp-minded. Incredibly talented, and to be perfectly frank, probably underappreciated. Just an incredibly smart, gifted individual who deserves all the success she gets. I wish I could have funded Boss Fight. I did the Lady Bits because, again, I knew she'd do something really fun. And I'm curious to see where it goes from here. And yeah. So I think we'll just get to that conversation now, and I'll wrap it up at the end here. So here's part 1 of my chat with Liana Kerzner.
This episode of Just Joshing is sponsored by Indie Imprint. Indie Imprint supports creators by creators. Whether you are writing a book or creating a video game, Indie Imprint works with its clients to produce, edit, and present their projects to the world. For more information, check out their website at www.indieimprint.com.
Basically, I went to Vancouver to do the film industry because I thought that'd be it's the one area I don't have a lot of contacts in, right? And COVID happened.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's out this year. That's not happening this year. So I was faced with a very interesting choice. So I stole Sparkle Muffin from you. That's how I described my day job. Literally a drunken hot mess. I literally described it perfectly. But I was at the point, mentally in my head, that I was ready to walk away anyway. And
wow.
yeah, well, I've done it for too long, right? It's one of those situations where you just it's not the job, I've outgrown it in every conceivable way. Now I could have stayed in Vancouver and kept working, and I've been miserable and no idea when I would have been able to see my family again. Or I could go to Windsor, for the short term at least, live with family, of course. Alright, I just let the... So, I'm back in Windsor. This is my dad's shop where we're recording this. So, it's one of those situations where, it was okay, for the short term, right? For the short term, this is where I'm going to be, and then long term, we'll see. I still kind of want to do some film stuff, but I'm not sure that when that will happen again or how that will happen again. But for now, I'm just okay, well, let's do this freelancing thing. So I'm launching my second book in about a month, and I've been just doing the freelance life. It's actually been it's scary, but in a good way.
Yes. Yeah. You seem to be really taking to it, which is awesome.
Well, I have fun. I've said this in the past. It's a headspace. It's totally your headspace when you go into it. I'm in a position where I don't really have to worry about, again, that's one of the advantages of being here too, is I'm home. So I don't really have to worry about, rent, which does make things a lot easier in the short term.
Yes.
Fuck's sakes. But it's one of those situations where I'm let's go, let's see what happens, and I'm really literally not scared of anything or anybody. So go for it and just swing at every bat and go for even some crazy ones. So
that's great.
Yeah. How about you? I see you got Boss Fight going on. I mean,
doing some contract work on some games.
Sweet. So what are you doing?
So typical of game stuff. Can't talk about it. It's under NDA.
Yeah.
But
I'm not talking about who. I'm not talking for who. Let's be clear about this. What do you do for games?
It started off as a consulting gig.
Okay.
And then it became a narrative design gig. And then I somehow team designing the combat system as well. So asking me exactly what I'm doing on this one particular project, I'm doing a bunch of everything.
Okay, I'm not going to put you in a corner and ask what I suspect this probably is. I do approve, though. I think that suits you. It's at this point in your life, I think this suits you very much. I think you're a big video game fan, and the fact that you're actually getting to design the games you want to play, even if it's just as part of a team, that must be an exciting challenge for you.
Well, it's also something I don't have to be on camera for.
Yeah.
And, it's nice to just be able to get up and start working instead of get up, spend a ridiculous amount of time doing camera-ready makeup, then do stuff. It's a new challenge, which is really good. I do enjoy the work. It's just weird with everything right now. Everything is weird because of COVID.
Yeah, well,
so,
COVID, I mean, we've had murder hornets. We traveled back to 1968. I mean, it's not 60.
Now rivers are running blood red in Russia.
Yeah, so, it's one of those situations where actually the murder hornets kind of got ignored because it wasn't scary enough.
I knew a lot of people who were going, murder hornets? Seriously? Murder hornets?
Yes, but it's like, honestly, with everything, seriously, I think an alien, like a UFO, could literally come down and be like, what else?
Yeah, and no one would be surprised.
Yeah, no one. Like what else could possibly happen this year? And then then Armageddon would happen. It's like, well, at least it's over,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like,
well, we got that done.
Yeah, at least it's over. I mean, I don't think we topped that act. Yeah, and that's and that's kind of where we're at. Again, it's a mental headspace. I think for me, again, I was ready to walk away from what I was doing. And in one hand, it's like, you're insane to walk away right now. But on the other hand, it's like, well, this isn't going to last forever. And if there's anything about this that this has taught me, it's also this too. You have to go on your own today. You have to, because if you don't, you're always going to be like these ebbs and flows and these tides. I mean, they impact you as a small business person too, or an entrepreneur. But differently. There's still business still runs no matter what. Like, that's the other thing I know a lot of people, I'm not sure if everybody fully gets. Business is always going to run until the world legitimately ends, right?
Yes.
And even then, who knows? Who the hell knows? But so you have to have the ability to adapt and kind of just go, you know what?
Yeah.
This is my thing. This is what I can do. These are the problems I can solve. Let's rock and let's go for it.
Yeah, exactly. It's the idea of, a full-time job with benefits and all that stuff. That's not the reality of the economy now.
No, it's done.
So, yeah, it is what it is, and you gotta sort of adapt to it.
Yeah, and that's where we're at. So I mean, if I don't walk away now, I never will, and I don't want to. Yeah. I don't want to ever. I don't. As hard, I might have a real hard time the next 6 months. Entirely possible. But at the same token, I'll get through that 6 months.
Yes.
And then I will be on the other side of that, probably with clients, because I'm crazy, and people seem to like my crazy. So I'm looking at it kind of like, I'm going to give this a real shot, and if it don't work, I'll get a fishing boat and I'll go to Nanaimo and go fishing, and probably I don't care, right? And it just that's where I'm at. I don't see a future doing anything else. I'm either going to do what I love to do, or fuck it. Like,
yeah, it's the way to go now.
Well, you might as well. There's no guarantee. I think the one thing this crystallized was that there's no guaranteed future for anybody. And that's not a bad thing, by the way, completely. But if that's the case, you might as well just worry about doing you. Let's just cut the BS out of this. Like, this isn't going to be here tomorrow. You're still going to be here tomorrow. What can you do?
Yep. Yep.
That's my headspace. I don't know if it's the right headspace, but it's my headspace. So.
It's for me.
Yeah. So, and it sounds like you got so. Are they letting you put in cheat codes?
There are those old school, like, hidden rooms
that's gonna be fun. I have, like I said, when we get off the air, I'm not gonna name names because again, I'm not gonna do that. I have a theory. I know what kind of game this is, and it sounds like it's gonna be fun. So
Okay.
yeah,
Cool.
I can't do that on the air because yeah, I feel like I owe you a beer though for Sparkle Muffin. I really really do. I described my day job like that for about 2 years. So, and it actually caught on a little bit when I was working in Calgary. Vancouver had no sense of humor about it though. So.
Vancouver, yeah, Vancouver's Vancouver.
Yeah, I know. It's strange. 'Cause it's a beautiful place. It really is, and there's some really amazing people there. There really are. But
There's some great shopping. There's some great restaurants.
Oh,
but I think it's a total change of lifestyle and pace and even mannerisms, like how you talk to people compared to sort of the Toronto-New York corridor.
yeah. Well, like I say, it's interesting because I lived in Detroit, right? Oddly laid back in depending on which neighborhood you go into. Toronto has its hustle, which is, I think Toronto. I think the thing about Toronto, I think that gets me is there's always that constant. I don't know what it's like now. Actually, I should ask this: has it slowed down?
Kind of. I mean, I think part of the reason that they can't get the COVID cases under control like other provinces, Torontonians don't know how to just be. You know, they have to be somewhere, and so they'll go and crowd Trinity Bellwoods Park because they don't know how to just exist.
COVID's been, man, I have 3 different minds with COVID. So it's like, it's an unknown. So you gotta treat it with respect.
Yeah.
On the other hand, okay, Ontario, you look at the fatality rate, it showed, I think the biggest thing I got from most of the heavy areas that were fatalities is the poorer the healthcare system, the more people died. And that sounds like a generalization for most diseases, but even with this one, I think it was notorious because anything with a secondary condition, the fact that so many old folks homes here got hit so hard.
Yeah. It's congregate living, people in close quarters, long-term care, and then apparently migrant workers are getting slammed with it now.
Yeah, which again, if you look at it, it's right, I think the United States almost doesn't count. Not because I don't think it's terrible, but just because it is such a unique case among the world, right? I don't know about how to quantify that. Depending on the state you go, is really it can go one way or the other.
That's true of so much in America right now.
Yeah. So America's kind of its own little. I'm glad I'm over here. I'm in like.
Well, you can see America from where you are.
Oh, I am literally 2 blocks from the Detroit River. 2 blocks.
Yeah. I did a show in Windsor. God, I don't remember anymore. But we were on a hotel. Our hotel was right on the water, and you looked across and you could see the Chrysler Building.
No, yeah, well, so I grew up. So this is my 3rd time living in Windsor. Once when I was a baby, so I don't remember that one. I lived here when I was going to college here, and I was a flake and all that stuff. And now, and so my favorite scene is like Riverside Drive. I used to love looking at the bridge. I love the Ambassador Bridge, how it looked aesthetically, right? So whenever I come here, that's one of my favorite views. You go along the river, take Riverside Drive, and it's one of the nicer drives in the city. So I literally, during this time, I walk to the river because I can and I will, and yeah, you can literally see it like Detroit, and again, it's a strange world because you literally look across the river and you'll see people jet skiing on the trailer. Yeah. On the trailer. Yeah. Like nothing is going on. And it's like, it crystallizes to me that we all live in our own different worlds, and it's crazy. It's beautiful, but it's kind of crazy. So.
Yeah.
So, what do you love about this time? What do you hate about this time? What do you hope remains the same?
That's a big question. Just sort of general or this sort of COVID-19 thing, or
just in general? I mean, like, COVID will it's when we have a pattern figured out for it, we'll be going outside again.
Or there's a vaccine, or there's some sort of therapeutic or something like that.
I'm not going to hold my breath on the vaccine. Because the average time for a vaccine is closer to 27 years. I'm not going to hold my breath on that one. Treatment, yes. Pattern, yes. At some point, we're going to go back outside with the virus. But with everything else... Sorry.
I mean, the whole COVID thing, it's brought out the best and the worst, and I mean, we're living through a historic period, and I know that's a cliche, but in this case, with what's going on, on the streets and in the political zeitgeist, it is singular.
Mm-hmm.
After the death of George Floyd, it's one of those things where people keep saying something feels different this time.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're living through historic times, you can either feel sort of excited about the possibility for positive change, or you can be anxious because, quite frankly, no one believes they know how things are gonna land.
Oh yeah.
On them. And I prefer to be one of the people who are hopeful and excited for positive change, and that just means you have to get really, really good at filtering out the anger
Mm-hmm.
and accompanies uncertainty, and that's a learned skill. But yeah, I mean, just the hope that we can get closer to some sort of true equity on multiple fronts is very, very exciting, because there is still work to do, and there just didn't seem to be the will to do it when everything was just partisan, sort of factional fighting, when identity politics was sort of a prop
Mm-hmm.
in the larger partisan fight. But this is really crystallized things, and it's good because, every person now has an opportunity to do something in real terms to make the world more just. And we'd be crazy not to take that opportunity.
I agree with that. I agree with that. I mean, for me, I lived in Calgary, so for me, the big thing I like. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to ignore what's going on with George Floyd, but I've always thought one of Canada's biggest atrocities was the Native population, and I look at how I've seen them treated. I actually put a story on part one of J.M. Frey's podcast at the end. I talk about the two worst racial things I've ever seen. One of them was in Phoenix. That was just terrible. But the second one was in Calgary, and I was working for a grocery store at the time, and I'm not going to name names because I like my bank account. And I was young. I was a cashier, and I remember one day the owner of the store came in a huff and basically told me, "I don't want you to serve any Native people." I was like, I never thought I'd hear that in 2005. I never ever thought in my life, but it was there, and I was like, wow. All right.
Yeah, and it's funny because people who make those comments, it's like they forget they make those comments and then insist they're not racist.
Yes.
And if that's not racist, what is?
Like I said, it's number 2 on my list, right? I've lived in the States. I've lived, and a Canadian example is number 2 on my list. It's right. So, like, my only thing is, I mean, okay, you look at the United States, not just Black Lives Matter, but look at like the Puerto Ricans, Spanish, Samoan, Creole, their native population as well. There's a lot of minorities that aren't represented at all as well, and I'm hoping, and don't get me wrong, like what happened to George Floyd should not have happened to anybody. And the fact of the matter is, I lived in Phoenix. I could tell you some horror stories there too of some of the things I've heard and from some of my friends down there, and some of the things I've seen. And like what happened there should never have happened.
But there's a lot, like, even going beyond Black Lives Matter, the Samoan population, the Native population, the Hispanic population in the United States are also very, very underrepresented. Here, we again, the Natives are a big one. And the other thing we seem to fight all the time is language, right? In Alberta, you don't speak French. In Quebec, you don't speak English. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that is strange to me that you go out that far. You go out west, and there is no French.
Yes.
Like it's not even taught in schools to the same extent that it is in Ontario.
Yeah, I wouldn't know because I've never been taught out there because all my education was here. But yeah, it doesn't shock me. And this is where we, these are our faults as a culture. Like, these are the things I've seen growing up, right? I've said this many times. Intelligence discerns difference. Wisdom moves past it, right?
Yeah, that's very astute.
Yeah. That's how it works, right? Because we are trained to see differences, and that's not entirely a bad thing. Every one of us is unique. Every one of us offers things that other people don't have, right? We shouldn't. But the thing is, we are taught even at a young age that because you're different, right, you should be feared or mistreated and we do it all the time, and there's lots of examples of it, and it even go beyond color standard. Like, we look for difference, but instead of what needs to be taught going forward is we're all meant to be unique. We're all meant to stand out, and it doesn't matter who you are. You're right. You're awesome just who you are, and that's like the big giant. I should think that should be the end goal. It acknowledges where everybody's different, and everybody should be different. We're different in again, like a blade. There's not a single blade of grass that's the same. Why should a single human being be the same? But we should be loved for those differences and not try to conform to one particular standard that, by and large, is imaginary.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there obviously the issues. It would be simple to say it's one issue, and that issue is racism or bigotry and everything like that. But it's more complicated than that, right? Because when we talk about systemic inequality, and some people start rolling their eyes at that, but it is a real thing.
Oh yeah.
Systemic inequality isn't just about race. It intersects with race, but it isn't about race. Systemic inequality also affects, say, people who, third generation Eastern Kentucky, their family barely gets off the mountain. That's their family land. They have barriers to upward mobility as well. Now, this is a different issue than, say, certain parts of Chicago that they refer to as Chirac, because they're practically war zones. But they have things in common. And the issue we have, the issue that sort of the George Floyd thing brought into sharp focus is how, all these things sort of intertwine to create an event so hideous to most people that we wonder how something like that ends up happening. And the truth is, it's not like a guy wakes up one day and says, I'm going to be racist and kill a dude today. Or, it's not just that, racists are evil and everybody else are good people. It's a spectrum. It's a continuity. And it's a series of small choices that gets a guy like, what's his name, Derek Chauvin, into the part where he thinks it's totally acceptable to kneel on a guy's neck for almost 9 minutes and not think that it's maybe a good idea to put him on his side. That's a safer position when he's saying he can't breathe. Like, that doesn't just happen. That's a lot of things have to go wrong for that to happen. And I think the thing that makes it so horrifying is because it is so imminently preventable.
Yeah, it's imminently preventable, and the big caution going forward is this. You can't just look at the incident and deal with the symptoms of just the incident. You gotta also look at who's profiting from this stuff too, right? And you gotta go, okay, we gotta make this less a desirable outcome for everybody involved, because otherwise, like I said this like earlier, it just feels like 1968 or 1969 all over again. Almost very eerily similar conditions minus Woodstock. I don't want to come back here again in my lifetime, and I don't think anybody does. And unless we really look at all the problems that, honestly, about everything, right? Something else might occur down the road. I don't want to say that, but I mean, history does have it tend to repeat itself when we ignore the patterns. So,
I mean, the problem with inequality is the closer you get to things being more equal, the harder progress becomes. Because you get those situations where people say, you don't have real problems, you're just too sensitive. People really don't understand how not being part of the dominant culture makes everything harder in your life. Mm-hmm. And dealing with the very significant issue of over-policing, excessive police and violent policing, unnecessary arrest, mass incarceration, overcharging, the fact that black people are more likely to get a higher sentence than white people for the same crime, and so on and so forth. We can take care of all that stuff, and it would still be much harder to be black in America, and in some ways in Canada, than it is to be white when you control for everything else: socioeconomic bracket, geography, level of education, and so on.
Yeah.
And I mean, the real issue we have is a lot of people can't see past their own problems, because before COVID, we were living in a pandemic of desperation. Mm-hmm. I think viewing this whole thing through a lens of hate is the wrong way to go.
Absolutely.
People were very, very, very desperate, right? And it's super hard to get somebody to care about somebody else when they are barely hanging on.
Well, so the big people I felt sorry for in COVID were the small business people that actually had a storefront, because they were screwed. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. They were screwed, because there's no way for them to generate income. There was no way for them to pay rents. There was no rent freezes here, and as a result, a lot of small businesses just got killed. And anybody that in that position that was desperate, that didn't have a mobile, like an internet or some kind of virtual store, they got hammered. That's why restaurants and bars in particular right now are getting it, because you can't you can do delivery, but let's be honest, you don't have a restaurant experience in this environment. You can't do it. So,
I mean, before that, restaurants and bars were increasingly the only sort of viable business in downtown Toronto. There was a reason you were getting fewer and fewer stores and more restaurants and bars, because that you could get the clientele, you could stay open. And I mean, now they're just getting hammered. It's funny, the Mexican place near me, sort of like a community known thing, it's still jumping. They got the music going while they're doing takeout. There's always this small crowd outside, so they'll probably make it through.
Oh yeah.
But here, where I live, because I don't live downtown, the rents are far lower. Commercial rents in downtown Toronto are gross.
Rents, period, in Toronto downtown are gross. Even living that, if you live down there, God, you gotta have a lot of money. Like, holy shit.
Well, they don't have a lot of money. They work downtown, so they want to live downtown.
Yeah.
And it's very, very expensive to live downtown. And I do feel like, COVID-19 is a solvable problem.
Mm-hmm.
What it's done is it's put pressure on a lot of the bigger ongoing problems
Yes.
that we've had in society, and it's, you know, it's brought that into incredibly sharp focus. And sometimes, you know, this is where leadership matters. These sorts of things can tear a culture completely apart, or they can be an opportunity for a society to come out, you know, even stronger than they were going in.
Absolutely. So I have a theory. This is one of my theories about going forward.
Yeah.
I think property values for a lot of businesses are actually going to drop. And the reason why I believe this is, okay, if you're an office space downtown Toronto,
Yeah.
your workers don't have to come to work anymore to get the job done. So why do you have
Yeah.
that office space in downtown Toronto anymore? You don't.
Yeah.
You don't. And there's a lot of businesses that are reevaluating how people work. And there's also just a simple fact is I love working at home. I love it. To get me to go outside and work somewhere else, right? If it's not serving my ends in some way, I ain't doing.
It's inefficient, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. No, it's
Yeah.
it's not like. Again, you're a school. I honestly think for the most part, a school is good for kids. I honestly do
Yeah.
think it's a really good thing.
Yeah.
If you're a restaurant, yes, people do want to go out. People do want to have an experience. Same with bar. That all said, at least for the next year or so, restaurants and bars aren't going to be able to do a full experience right now. They're just not
Right.
going to be able to. So you're not going to have concerts. You're not going to have sporting events with large crowds, at least in anywhere sane. Minus whatever the hell happened in Florida. We'll leave that for another day.
Right.
Right. Right. So you're not going to have so you're not going to be able to do events. You're not going to do the things that can make a lot of these businesses unique. And for the majority of us that work, again, if you're a school or a hospital, okay, sure. I mean that makes total sense.
Right.
But if you're not one of those two things, why? Right? And again, you're a restaurant, okay, sure. But again, you're not going to be able to do a full experience for at least probably the rest of this year at least. So why would you pay $10,000 a month rent for a building you're not going to use? Right? That's kind of where I like. That's one, like, I feel like this is overall a good thing. I
Yeah.
think knocking the property taxes from a downtown core is probably in everybody's interest in the long run, provided
Yeah.
they don't do what they did in Calgary, which is, hey, we're going to put all the taxes on homeowners, because that will break everybody. But
Yeah.
but if you let things kind of gradually build down and go, okay, we can't make money this way anymore. How can we make money this in other ways, without killing our home economies? Because
Right.
because that's what Calgary's just did to itself. So I'm curious to see how many people still have a house after this year. Unfortunately, there. But the idea of ownership, what a building will cost, I think is heading downward because it doesn't have the same need anymore.
Yeah.
Right? That's one. I think that's a good thing. The thing I'm kind of I went to a chapters the other day, and they have done, at least for the time being, a completely cashless thing. And I think, and I'm not quite so good about that, simply because I do a lot of my stuff with a cart. That's not really the issue, but I love the idea that I can still grab cash if I need to.
Yeah.
I don't like the idea that my wealth's a light switch.
Yes.
Right?
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't like it, and I don't like the idea, like, and I think also, like, if you're a business like Chapters, you're completely screwed. You can't offer the customer experience that you did before, and you shouldn't be able to right now anyway.
Well, yeah, because their whole model was built around people lingering in the store.
That's right, and you can't do that right now.
Yeah.
And if you're going to make it so I can only pay you one way, you've completely killed your customer service base. Like,
Yeah.
so how do you function? You're done. I don't, like, Amazon's efficient. I hate to say it because I don't want to necessarily support them, but
Well, I have no problem with the model that Amazon uses. It's the fact that they pay their people like crap and their workplaces aren't safe.
I just like that they're like the 1920s railroads. That's what I dislike about them. I don't think.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I don't. I think they've become a point where they're almost essential. I think Walmart has a similar problem, to be very honest with you.
Yes.
Walmart buys so much food, and that's where Walmart's very much at fault here. That it affects the price of everything around everybody else.
I resisted shopping at Walmart for so long, but when you get below a certain density in population, you have no other option.
That's right. No, and that's right. That's the truth, and it's just the way it is. So you have this. You've created the 1920s railroad problem all over again with both those companies. So I think you give them a choice. You can be the supplier, or you can compete for business. You can't be both.
Right.
Pick one. If you wanted to be the supplier, ultimately you win. That's what they would. That's what they would do. They would do what the railroad companies did. Hey, well, right? They'll do what Bell did, right? But I mean, that's what needs to be done with both of those companies. I think you do that, you solve a lot of problems like that, right?
Yeah.
But I don't. Again, just me personally, I feel that there is a general growing reluctance to deal with those two monsters from governments, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
I like if I were to put any government body under the fire, that's where I would put them under the fire. I don't like the idea of a corporation having that much say over how everything is run.
Yeah.
Make them choose. If you make them choose, I'm good with it. Either way they choose to go, right? And it would give a lot of other businesses a chance to thrive and grow again. And actually would make the pile bigger for everybody, including, ironically, both those companies. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, whenever a company is choking off competition, that's artificial, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing I don't like about companies like, Amazon or even something like Uber.
Yeah.
That rapidly put taxi companies out of business. And people were stuck with these very expensive taxi medallions that were now, near worthless. They don't. These hybrid businesses are playing both sides of things. Like, okay, you've destroyed actual taxi companies, but you claim you're not a transportation company, you're an app. Like, that's like saying, like a grocery store that does online delivery or like an online store that sells clothes isn't a clothing store because they don't have a brick and mortar store. It's ridiculous. No other industry would say, no, we're not that industry because of because of the type of service they provide. Yes, you're an app that has people pick people up and take them somewhere. You are a transportation company. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, like that's. But I think I think my 1920s analogy actually fits that too, right? It's. I mean, kudos to Uber, Amazon, and Walmart for finding ways to make their businesses efficient. You can't help but admire that.
Yeah.
But that also, I mean, that's what you got to come down to. Like, if you're going to. Because basically what you've done is if you let them continue to succeed, then the only companies that are going to get as big as them are going to do their tactics. And I don't like I dislike the fact that we have 5 companies that run all our food. I don't think that's entirely a good thing. But I like the idea that Amazon basically runs all shipping. My previous employer, I mean, I never seen so much. How to put this delicately, bootlicking. But they had no choice. Amazon's king, right? That's the name of the game, and you don't you shouldn't be giving these those big companies that much power. I mean, they already even without that kind of like sway, they're still very powerful entities in their own right. I mean, they control a huge part of the economy, and even if they had to choose, they still would control a huge part of the economy, and in a way that's actually would be healthy-ish.
Yeah, I mean, we always have to worry about checks and balances on companies like Amazon, and there's no easy way around that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm torn. Like I get what you're saying. I'm very torn regarding the role of some of these new tech companies. I just wish they'd make everything easier for everybody and start taking those massive profits and reinvesting them in their business models so that they're actually good jobs instead of just the jobs that are available.
Well, that's why I'm choosing the freelance life, because it's like, you know what, that's not a good alternative. Like it's just not. Like, but I mean, that's the nature. That is the nature of where these companies are going.
Yeah.
Let's see here. So you've been doing Twitch now, I've noticed.
Yeah.
How's that going?
Twitch is Twitch, right? I'm enjoying it more than I thought I would. It is still very much its own thing, and it is very exposed, right? There's no filter on Twitch. Anybody can come on and share in a really positive experience, or anybody can come on and give you massive grief, and there's no control over that, and you have to sort of accept that.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a really good community going with a really high quality chat. There's really very few topics that are out of bounds as long as everybody sort of behaves, and it's a cool community of about like 40 people every session that show up and talk to each other as well as ask me questions while I play games, mostly that they pick. And I admit, I've played games I never would have played were it not for the fact that the Twitch community voted for me to play them.
So which games did they make you play? I haven't been following that closely. I've been seeing your channel a little bit, but I'm just like I'm curious.
Well, it's funny because initially I thought I'll play retro games, and that did okay, but it didn't really sustain. And then I started playing Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice, which is a From Software game. It's in sort of the Dark Souls type of game, and the thing about Dark Souls is those games are really, really hard.
Yes, they are.
And so it seems to be now I have a niche of playing games that are more on the challenging side, like sort of core gamer games. They're single player, but they're more challenging.
Ninja Gaiden Sigma challenging?
What's that?
Ninja Gaiden Sigma challenging?
Dark Souls is up there.
It's up there, yeah. I actually was suicidal enough to play Ninja Gaiden Sigma. That first time
Ninja Gaiden games make me rage.
They're designed to. They are actually designed to make you.
Like, they're hard in a different way that Dark Souls games are.
Yep.
They're infuriating in different ways. I do think that the From Software guys are getting a little bit lazy in their design. Their boss fights are not as interesting as they once were. They're doing other things kind of neat, like the verticality in Sekiro was very interesting. I'd like to see them. And yeah, you can't do like a Dark Souls numbered game every single time. You have to spread those out so people are excited for them. But still, it's a little, they're apparently working on a game with George R. R. Martin, so we'll see where that goes.
Everybody dies, Act 1.
But it's interesting because I played like Hollow Knight because somebody suggested that, was really, really passionate. That's a tough game too.
Yeah?
The optional fights are difficult, right? The bosses. And now I'm playing Nier Automata, which is not difficult.
No, that game's actually, it's fun, but it's not.
It's not hard.
No.
But it's very Japanese.
Yes.
And then there was at one point where it was just like a bullet spray boss, and I was just evading, and I said, there is too much Japanese on the screen at once for me to handle right now. But then I played Doom, because I just love Doom, and...
It's a classic game.
Yeah, well, the new ones, they're excellent games. They're just really good games, but I guess I'm sort of like, these are games that women normally wouldn't play, and like maybe that's my niche, but Twitch is very much a medium of give the people what they want. I was really hesitant to get on Twitch because I didn't understand it, and I have to admit I kind of still don't understand it, but my channel's growing slow and steady, so I figure I'm doing something right, and I'm just sort of listening to what the audience wants, and I figure that'll get me through it, even though I admit I still don't totally get what makes one Twitch channel more popular than another. I think a lot of it is just fluke.
Yeah, I think it has. So I'm a big, like, for me when I do Twitch channels, I'm a big card game guy. I like Shadowverse and I like Hearthstone. Hearthstone, oddly enough, between the two, I love playing Shadowverse more, but I'll watch Hearthstone more. I find Hearthstone just by the nature of the game, it's just...
Is it because of the tactics?
No! Shadowverse requires a lot more thought.
Okay.
Way more thought, because it's a lot more... So, Hearthstone's like Magic the Gathering Light. Shadowverse is kind of like Magic the Gathering, like a step below it. It's just literally a half step below it.
So Hearthstone plays faster?
Hearthstone plays actually a little slower.
Interesting. So why would you rather watch Hearthstone?
Because I think it's the character. Well, it's a couple of things. Right, Hearthstone by its very nature feels more casual. And I think that lends to its watchability to some degree. I think the nature of how the characters are enacting it feels looser. Whereas if I'm watching Shadowverse, it's like, oh my god, like they're going to be quicker. Their games are going to feel a lot quicker. The movements are more complex, generally speaking, too.
Harder to follow. Okay.
Yeah, right. They're a lot more complex. So that's part of it too. The other part of it, I think, too, is also... Okay, so you look at someone like, say, Kriparian or someone like Ali Straza. Ali's a competitive player. Krip's a very more casual player. But their personalities shine in their channels, right? And right, and I think it's a combination. It's like it feels casual. It doesn't feel like... Again, if you want somebody more competitive, watch Ali. Ali plays a lot harder. She also plays Magic on there, too. She plays a lot harder, generally harder. Not that Krip can't play, but Krip's more... He likes the draft formats. He likes the more truly casual formats of the game, and I can understand that as a player myself. I've gotten to the point where I'm never going to be an uber competitive Magic player anymore. I'm going to just have fun, and because I don't have time. I don't have time for anything else.
Yeah.
Because
that gets expensive.
It's expensive, but also once you do it, like once upon a time, I literally had a Tolarian Academy deck. I don't know if you know anything about Magic or not, but it was one of those decks that basically plays itself.
Right.
Right, and those things, they're cool when you make them yourself and you discover. It's a cool path to discovery because you're figuring out the deeper combos of the game and the deeper parts of the game. And that's great. And you do that once or twice, and you're like, that's awesome. But you also just realize, too, it's the style of play is actually not very fun. I would rather... So I have a commander deck I'm building. It's going to be literally the coin toss cards in Magic. This is in the classic coin toss cards. That actually is very powerful, right? And of course I'm going to cheat because that's just what I'm going to do, right? But thing is, if you beat me, I want an interactive game. I want you to outsmart me or me to outsmart you. I don't necessarily want to beat you because my cards are more powerful than yours, or I made one key play. Like literally, combo games are about making one key play. Right? If I can stop that key play, I beat your combo deck. If I can't stop you, you win. It's literally one move. That's what that game's about. One move. Whereas if I'm playing a more interactive game, it's not really about one move. It's about this move versus this move, and it's more interesting. It's a more interesting game to me. That doesn't mean I don't like a cool combo. I love cool combos. I just don't want a game. I don't want it to feel like solitaire for too long, because then at that point it's like, I could have made that too. I've done it. It's not that fun. That's me though. So.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting. I admit I don't get into those games because I think they would eat my life.
They would.
Because I got obsessed with Gwent in The Witcher, like the card game.
Yeah, the game's good. It's a good game.
Yeah, and I mean, if it was just all that, I'd never stop playing.
Yeah.
And the action games, the really tough action games, you can only play for so long until you get tired. But any of those more strategic type games, it's like, oh my god, like I just played for 5 hours, what happened to my day?
Yeah.
You know, whereas if you're playing something more heavy action, you can only play for about 2-3 hours before it's like, no, I want to do something else. You know?
So for me, it goes like this. If it's a game like Ni no Kuni or Persona,
right,
they suck my life. They just do.
Yes.
They do. I really like Ni no Kuni. I really like Persona 5. They're great.
Yeah, Ni no Kuni is very, very sweet. I mean, it's Miyazaki making a video game.
Yes, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. The only thing I didn't like about it was actually I thought the ending was a little short. But I really enjoyed the game. I really, really did. Right?
You know what? You're right. I think, yeah.
Yeah. The ending was a little short. Yeah. But the bonus content was awesome. I love the bonus content in that game. So, so it's like that's one of my favorite. Like, I love those kind of games, and those I could play forever. That's why I don't play World of Warcraft. I can't, because if I played World of Warcraft, we wouldn't.
You can't win. Yeah, it just goes on forever.
It goes on forever, and I did it twice, and after the second 8-hour session, I was like, no, I can't do this. I just can't. I like it too much. I've learned as I've gotten older what I'm not mature enough for. That's Netflix. I can't do Netflix. Yeah. I can barely do YouTube.
Really?
You get rabbit holes.
Gotcha.
You go down rabbit holes on YouTube.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I can do it. Like I can do it, but it's just like, oh shit. Like, yeah. But I still sometimes, even when the days I do it, it's like I 2 hours of my day I'm never getting back. Was it really worth it? Probably not. Probably not. Then again, sometimes you're like, you know what? I needed that. Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes you need to take a day and just like wipe the hard drive, so to speak, like kind of clear your mind.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Liana K on YouTube, and I have to start a boss fight playlist. I will do that. I will do that this weekend. I'm so bad about the YouTube maintenance stuff. But yeah, if you go to my YouTube channel, Liana K, or find me on Twitter. I'm Red Liana K on Twitter as well, and all the links, like the pinned tweet.
And that was part 1 of my conversation with Liana Kerzner. We got plenty more to come. Part 2 is going to be up this Thursday, and this weekend I do my first ever poetry album with Josephine Lore. It's going to be a fun way. AJ Brown is my guest Monday, and my 400th episode airs Thursday. It's going to be a big one. It's me talking about freelancing so far. All right, so all that to say, there's really not too much more to say this week. I'm just gonna go other than say this. As you can tell, my sponsorship with Shoes of the Door is done for the time being. If anyone's got a book they want to promote to an wide audience, give me a shout. Happily do so. Thank you once again to Susie for what she did last month, and hopefully hear more. And that will do it for this episode of Just Josh. If you want to support the podcast, you can do so a number of different ways. Subscribe to the podcast. I'm on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and any other podcast platform you can just about imagine. Just click on the subscribe button, tell your friends. That'd be great. My book, Cloud Diver, is available now on Amazon. Go buy yourself the book. Go read the book. It'll be great. My Kyle Zero is coming soon. My YouTube channel is Joshua Pantellaresco. Definitely take a look at it there if you want to see the 327 previous episodes that have been done up until this point. My merchandise page is jpenteleresco.redbubble.com. There's my newsletter page as well. A new newsletter is going up this Thursday. If you want to subscribe, you can do so. My Twitter and Instagram is jpenteleresco. My Facebook page is Joshua Penteleresco, author, podcaster. Stay inspired. Keep doing your thing. And I'll see you guys next time.
Josh.